Welcome to Transform Now, the podcast brought to you by robotic process automation pioneer Blue Prism. Digital transformation has the potential to reshape the way companies service their customers, engage their employees, and manage their operations. Whether you're looking to develop strategies, tactics, and best practices to positively impact the future of work, or you're curious to learn how other companies have successfully navigated their digital transformation programs, then this podcast is for you. We're here to help you transform now.
Thank you for joining us today in the Transform Now podcast. In the second of a three-part series, this episode provides insight from an experienced executive of the financial services industry through a discussion with one of Blue Prism's leaders. Darshan, over to you.
Great to be here and welcome everybody. My name is Darshan Jain. I'm the Senior Director for Financial Services and Banking for Blue Prism for North and South America. And in this role, of course, I work with a multitude of financial services companies with all things related to intelligent automation and helping them along their journey. I'm also super delighted to have joining me today, Giovanni Gentile of State Street. And we've been working with State Street for a number of years, and just amazing what they've done with their automation. And that's what we're really going to be talking about a lot today. I'd like to turn it over to Gio to give a brief introduction. Gio.
Awesome. Thanks, Darshan. Appreciate it. Giovanni Gentile, been with State Street about 3.5 years, spent about 25 years in the auto industry, working for Ford Motor Company, FCA, and a couple of suppliers as well. Again, joined State Street from trying to transform physical robots into virtual robots and the mentality behind it. So bringing a lot of that experience with me from the auto industry and looking forward to discussing it with you today, Darshan.
So, Gio, have you thought of, or maybe you're already using it, some sort of an internal champion program? Maybe each line of business has a liaison to your team and they get trained up and then they go and become the advocates within their own businesses. So internal marketing, be very clear and transparent that, guys, this is not about your job. This is, again, to your point, if we're not directly helping the customer, then why are we doing this?
Yeah, we're starting to go that route, Darshan. I think having advocates in the business units themselves is huge. And I think this kind of ties into the whole business unit versus IT, because IT can have a negative connotation that this isn't working, this is broken, you guys are taking too long. So what we're trying to do is get those champions in the business. And a lot of times it's help through a federated model. So we do internal delivery within our PA. We have a COE. We have a number of delivery teams within our organization, but we also use vendors on the outside, and we also use a federated model where we actually build teams within the business units. And I think that's the best model because now they have the ownership, they are championing their own initiatives, and they are prioritizing their own initiatives. We have limited capacity. So obviously it's a fight to who gets the use of our services, right? So if you build that within the business and you build those champions within the business and you'd say, hey, listen, this is your baby now, you take it and you go, the success rate is incredibly higher. And there's been studies that have been done in the auto industry is being told what to do and being told what would you like to do are two different things. Because now when you have ownership, then now you have that accountability, you have that sense of urgency. And that to me is key. So I agree 100%, but socialization is key, having champions in the business to help break down barriers and impediments. We're starting to get there. We're building, we're in that final phase of how do we scale that now across the organization.
So I think there's some really valuable lessons here. Your team as the center of excellence, as the owner of the concept and platform, you provide the governance, maybe some best practices, maybe how to get started. But then the businesses and the federated model, they will have their own to-do list to say, I want to conquer these things. I want to solve these problems. And then your team will help them say, okay, here's how the technology works. Maybe you have an internal certification program on the various platforms. Where does IT come in all of this? IT typically is involved on infrastructure, the physical hardware, servers, et cetera. They probably have firewall issues, data security issues.
Correct.
And I'm curious, between State Street and your automotive days, what was the role of IT in both of these industries in terms of automation?
I think in the financial services industry, our role really is, as you mentioned, to provide governance. We provide the framework, the SDLC. We provide the platform, we provide production support, all those key essentials. What we ask the business then to take on is delivery. So that's an RPA architect, some developers, some BAs, and they handle all of the delivery. So we just provide that support. Similarly, in the auto industry, it was similar. IT played less of a role in front. They were more behind the scenes. They were coming in, making sure you had what you need administratively, but you had process engineers that did a lot of the electrical work on the assembly lines that were really part of the production team. So IT played a role, but not as prominent, where I noticed in financial services, IT plays a much more prominent role, which obviously makes sense. But the goal is still similar to the auto industry, Darshan, in that we want IT to go to the background. Like you almost don't know we're there. We're like a quiet church mouse. And then that way responsibility and onus goes onto the business. Whether you succeed or fail really is how well do you guys automate? We're going to give you the support and services that you need. There obviously will be challenges along the way, but we like to take a backseat role. I think that's the best way. And you have to put the ego aside to do that. Listen, I want you guys to succeed. Tell me how I can help you succeed, and we will do everything that we can. Once you remove the ego, life flows pretty smoothly.
Just from what you've said, it reminds me that there has been long held this confusion, I would say, that who owns RPA? It's still relatively new technology. It's about 5 years old in the mainstream. It's been around for a long time, but really in the last few years, it's really come into its own. And because it's software and because you need servers and databases and so on, some companies said, yep, that's Ms. CIO or Mr. CIO. They own it. So go and figure it out. And then they have to figure out what the technology is. And then they try to make it work and blend it into the fabric of all the tools that they support. Some other folks have said, no, this is like me learning Visual Basic or learning pivot tables or learning macros. I'm a business owner and I think, no, I'm just going to take the quick Microsoft training program and now I can do macros and some basic automation. I'm not going to go to IT for something that I know. Where is your thought on the aspect of ownership of IT? Is it just, as you said, provide the tools? Or is it something?
I'd like it to be just provide the tools, really. Again, I don't want to own it. I want the business to own it because, again, when they have responsibility and ownership, they're going to take care of it much better. We do have opportunities within our DA space, remote desktop automation, right? So a citizen developer can go in and do a lot of that work. Citizens in the business can do development work themselves. So I would rather provide you with the tools and the support, and I want to see you succeed. So I'm here to help you succeed. And it may sound cliche-ish, but really, if you approach it with that mentality, you're going to have greater success versus I own RPA. You guys can't do this. You guys can't do that. And that's where you get into the finger pointing and the conflict, personalities and things of that nature. So it's really getting that out of the way. And let's talk brass tacks. Again, that's just my automotive experience mentality. We need to get the job done. What do we need to do? Let's cut the crap, excuse my language, but let's cut the crap and let's get down to brass tacks. And what do we need to do to get the job done? And when you have that mentality and everybody works together to do that, it works out really well. So I think now as we put more onus and responsibility and tools and capability into the business, we're getting much better results. Trying to get away from being the stars of the show or the Gestapo of IT or automation to say you can or cannot do this. We want to help you guys succeed, and that's what we're here to do. So that's a mentality that we're trying to culturally adopt, if you will.
So I think that there's a real nugget there that you created a climate of success by providing, again, technology infrastructure, the governance, the how to get started, maybe a certification or training program. And then you invite businesses in, good communications, good marketing internally, and to say, guys, this is it. Maybe even some case studies to say how other business units or other industries have done this or other FS companies. And then now it's up to the business. Hey, Ms. Business Owner, bring your team. We've got all of the infrastructure here. We have all the tools for success, but now we need you to dive in. We're going to support you, but now it's yours. And we'll take care of the heavy lifting, whether it's an upgrade or it's a technology or it's an API. We'll take care of that. We want you to apply this new tool set to solve customer issues. And that's it. Would I be, correct in saying that's the track that you're taking at State Street now?
Absolutely, 100%. I think being able to provide that support, whether it's technical debt, whatever the issues are, we'll take care of that for you. But yeah, with the federated model is really set up for that. So we'll come in and we'll spend 6 months getting a team stood up, training, tools, everything that they need, and then get them going on a few use cases. So we'll give those recommendations. We'll take a look at that. We've streamlined our intake process or opportunity assessment. And then we go, instead of doing business specs and functional specs, we do what's called a SWOT and a swarm. So it's a more agile process where it would take 3 to 4 weeks to take a look at a business case and get a solution, at least to start it, to now just a week. We can do the SWOT and the swarm, get the functional specs done, and then teach them how to do that. So we'll take them through the process and then we'll say, okay, the next one, you take the lead and we'll support. And the third one, we're going to step out. So it's slowly fading away from that concept of being the owner of it to them owning it. And then again, as I mentioned, staying in the background. So when you do that, we have a team in the Asia Pacific region that's doing that now. and they're wildly successful. They're doing a great job on their own. And if they need something, they come help us. But essentially, once we have those maybe 6 months of hand-holding, if you will, then they're off to the races and they're automating on that.
Something you just said reminded me of what I'll call a fail-fast culture. When you mentioned agile, the SWAT and the swarm, again, just contrasting Tesla, they celebrate mistakes because their view is if you failed and you made that mistake, fantastic. That's another possibility eliminated along the road to success. Versus, oh my God, Darshan, you made a mistake. That's it. You're out of here. You're off the team. I think what you're also saying is you're embracing the same concept. Let's look at this. Let's do a quick agile SWAT swarm. Is this process an ideal candidate? If not, what do we need to do to get this process? Do we need to re-engineer? And if it is a good process, then hey, let's green light it as fast as we can. Let's get the results. This fail fast culture is not something quite celebrated in financial services, at least what I've read. It's more Silicon Valley, it's more high tech, and certainly now with Tesla to say, guys, I'd rather not spend a 1 year on a design of a prototype. I'd rather get shapes of it quicker every 2 weeks. Let's keep iterating until we can get to, hey, this is a great candidate. Let's go for it versus spending an entire year on a church hit deep down, but then you've actually never tried it. How is that going at State Street? So again, not to put words in your mouth, but let's try it. If it doesn't work, let's figure it out. Let's do the next iteration. Let's do this agile every 2 weeks or every 3 weeks. Are you finding any resistance in a sort of a FS culture?
In the beginning, yes. So we would spend a lot of time on use cases, get halfway through it, come into an impediment and say, we got to figure out a solution. And we just would bang our heads against the wall for another 3-4 months, wasting time. And there was a fear of failure. There was a fear of, we made this commitment. And my mentality was, if it's not working, let's just scrap it. There's some cost, let's move on. But if you extrapolate that sunk cost in another 6 months of wasting your time and spinning your wheels, you're going to spend a lot more money. So I think that culture is really important. That's something that we look at now. It's okay to say no. I think for the most part, we were never saying no. Anything that came our way that we were trying to automate, we would just stick to it. And we weren't reaping the benefits of it. And in part is, don't be afraid to say, no, this is not working. We're going to stop it. We're going to move on. So that mindset is difficult, I think, to adopt. Once you adopt it, the fail fast mindset really can pay a lot of dividends down the road, because now you'll see problems a lot earlier, a lot sooner, and then you won't make those mistakes. But then more importantly, you're not wasting time on things that have a 10% success rate. You're going to try to get the ones that are 90%, 95%. So even if it's not as fortuitous from an ROI perspective, it doesn't matter. Let's automate. Let's get those under our belt. And we often tell our business customers, automate small, simple processes and build that momentum, build that. And let's not focus so much. And what you can start doing is, as you start to get those ROI savings, reinvest that back in your team, and eventually it becomes self-funding. Yeah. And that's the goal, right? So we don't have it necessarily, and this is our goal. We're not there yet, but we want to have a self-funding model where we don't have to invest anything in automation. It's paying for itself as we move.
Again, I think that's a great nugget for our audience, especially seeing that many of them, about 40% of our audience, is early in their journey. A great takeaway, at least for me, is get some early wins on the scoreboard. Get some of the stuff that is straightforward. It works. Get some quick ROI, maybe a little bit low. It's not tens of thousands of dollars or however you measure. Maybe it's only half an FTE, but get that. And I think it's not just for showing the steering committee or the governance committee or so on, but it's actually working with the direct frontline employees who are impacted. And especially if they were part of the suggestion box approach to say, hey, we automated this. Suppose this was done to me and I had this idea. Your team comes along and says, yep, we're going to do this. And it's done. I bet I would be a huge advocate to say, hey, I made this suggestion. And then 90 days later, it's in production. And guy says, yeah, that tedious 15-minute process I used to do every morning, it's automated. I just push a button, it's done, or it's just done for me. I'm probably telling 10 of my neighbors who will get, again, that momentum going so you can work on word of mouth. Yeah. Yeah.
That's right.
That's
right. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. I was just going to say real quick, there would be cases that would come up and have 30 FTE savings, but at the detriment of a year and a half of use case delivery work, right? Whereas you have 2 or 3 or even none. Maybe it's just an efficiency gain. Maybe it's quality improvement. Maybe it's IDD prevention, which can be huge as well. So it just depends. But those smaller savings will add up, as you mentioned. And I think that's paramount. A lot of times companies early on in the program want to go after the big nuggets. And it's the low-hanging fruit is really your best bet.
Yeah, I was just going to say the same thing. I've heard of customers telling me, but Darshan, unless it's $150,000 or roughly 2 FTEs equivalent, I can't touch. I'm just questioning, but I'm just curious, who made that rule? Like, how is it that you've set the bar so high and that you have to hit the bullseye every time you pull the arrow? Who set that rule? Because what it does is it limits and narrows your window of ideas very much. And then you have to hit it out of the park, because I bet you a significant automation will take, as you said, months and months to do. So you're almost setting yourself up for disappointment if it doesn't work the first time out.
Right. You basically want to play in the World Cup final without doing any of the qualifying games or practices. Exactly. You have to practice, and why not practice on simple things, get those quick wins, gain the confidence, and then that's where your support will come from. So if you don't have that support from the top, as you show these small, quicker wins, then you start to garnish that advocacy for what you're trying to do. And now it becomes much easier. So that the app dev teams and the CIS and controls teams are working with you and not blocking you because they're not familiar with the process or they have other things to do. So that becomes important, I think, in the end.
Thanks for tuning in to Transform Now. For more insightful discussions on digital transformation and more, check out our podcast channel where you'll find all of our previous episodes. To make sure you never miss an episode, subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast player. And if you like what you heard, please leave us a review. For more information about digital transformation and the future of work, check out blueprism.com to learn how Blue Prism's digital workforce is enabling enterprise transformation now.